And that's by the statement that they have called father fractures,
Mm.
and that is what happens when a child is dropped or provoked to wrath or injured by their nurturer and by their caregiver and
Mhm.
by their builder. Because a child is supposed to be in the hands of their parents, particularly their father, and the responsibility is to carry the child and to bring the child to an expected end as a provider, protector, and a purpose giver.
Uh,
But the mind becomes so fragmented because by treating a child with so much disrespect and with so much hostility, then the image of themselves is skewed and
mm.
fragmented, and you can't help but feel unworthy
Mm.
and unloved when you're being treated in a way that God didn't design. And if you're being jabbed, if you're being
Mhm.
hurt, if you're being prodded, if you're being despised, and
Mhm.
because we were made to be loved, it's kind of like the Grinch
Mm. Mm.
when he was so upset because he was jabbed, he
Mhm.
was prodded, he was insulted, he was disrespected,
Right.
and he was bullied, he was made fun of, and his heart shrank.
Mhm.
And so, what we're
Mhm.
dealing with, that discouragement, is like the Grinch. Your heart is shrunk.
Right.
And so what did he do? He went back to Whoville
And
and he
tore
tore that
tore
place
it up.
up. And the mayor, he gave the mayor a fit.
That's right.
So
That's right.
sometimes when people are giving you a
Wow.
fit, when your boss is giving you a fit, when your
Wow.
children are giving you a fit, when your people in your church are giving you a fit,
Right.
instead of just writing it off as they're just mentally ill, they have issues, the diagnostic approach would be to look at, are they hopeless? Are they discouraged? Or were
Right.
they loved by their father properly?
Right.
Now, and we know what happens when a mother doesn't love her children and nurture, and we're going to talk about that. But this particularly is just where the rage comes from,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
they were supposed to receive that love from the mother, and the
Mhm.
Bible gives the great remedy of instructing them in love. See what happens, why you have to have love and instruction. Instructions deals with patience.
Mm.
Now when you're wrathful, usually you don't have patience. And
Right.
usually when you're provoking your child to wrath, it's because you are so irritable, and it takes patience to instill instruction, because instruction comes from your prefrontal cortex. It comes from your ability to think.
Mhm.
But if you're offline, and if you're anxious or angry or depressed, you're offline, and you can't do the next thing that God says is what
Right.
children need, which is to give them instruction,
Right.
to raise them up in instructions and discipline them in
Right.
the way of God and teach them in the way of God. What happens so many people are traumatized. Yeah, we have big T, little t. Traumatized with the little t has more to do with relationships and
Mhm.
just different things that people have been through, meaning that they haven't been able to um, integrate their emotional experiences that they had
Mhm.
into their minds and into their emotions. So that's kind of, like you said, fragmented.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of people who can't handle conflict, criticism, or any correction because they were not corrected right. So when it's time for them to go to work, the
Mhm.
military, sit under their pastor, get a relationship with God, they
Right.
have this father fracture.
Mm.
So God is
Mm.
telling us first that in order to teach our children, in
Mm.
order to avoid the wrath and provoking them, you have to be in a rested place to teach.
Mm.
I know you guys have seen on the internet or heard on the internet where they show a parent trying to teach a child how to do math, and it's like, what's 2 plus 2? And the child is like, 2. No, I said, what's 2 plus 2? And they think by getting louder and more aggressive, the child is going to get the message. But what happens
Mm.
is that they shut down. They go
Mm.
offline because they're triggered and they're having a stress response to their environment. And
Mm.
so many times we're triggered in our marriages, we're triggered on the job, we're triggered in relationships. And it
Right.
all goes back to the wounds of our childhood when we were provoked.
Mm.
So God has given the prerequisite of instruction.
Yeah,
It's going to take kindness,
wow.
calmness, to be able to instruct them. That is the
Right.
job and the role, to
Right.
instruct them.
It's funny because one of the main things that God told Adam is one couple of characteristics. He was supposed to be a not so much a nurturer, but he's supposed to be a protector. He was supposed to be a builder, a cultivator, uh, a- and
Yeah.
he was supposed to be a teacher.
Right.
One thing about cultivation is cultivation is laboring to produce fruit,
Right.
laboring to produce not just any fruit but favorable fruit.
Right.
And so as a father, if you're not cultivating, you cultivate your wife to improve on the conditions that she can thrive.
Right.
You cultivate your children,
Right.
improve on the conditions where they can thrive.
Right.
So you
Right.
create an environment
Right.
where they can get the max out of their potential.
Right. And that cultivation looks like turning your phone off, giving them some one-on-one, turning the TV off so that they can
Right.
concentrate, making sure they have a home that is
Talking to them,
habitable.
having a communication, just talking to
Right.
them.
And
Right.
the home setting,
Right.
because that's where they live. And if you don't create safety, then you can't talk to them.
Right.
So safety is
Right.
that's why I'm going
Safety
to
and security.
Maslow's
That's right.
first hierarchy
That's
of
right.
needs, is that you have to be able to create safety and
That's right.
security. And safety comes from, I'm not going to hurt you. You know, like Hezekiah Walker stated, with words of my mouth, or by my hands, or by being selfish, or choosing people over you, going out and on dates and leaving you with anyone,
Right.
and choosing my
Right.
career,
Right.
traveling, and I don't know what's going on in your life, and I don't
Right.
know, I'm on the evangelical field and I'm at church from sun up to sundown,
Right.
but I don't know your teacher from Adam. I don't know your school assignments. I don't know your friends. I don't know your interests. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what keeps you up at night. I don't know any of those things,
Right.
because I
Right.
haven't cultivated.
Right.
Cultivate has to do with time
That's
and
right.
creating an environment for someone to grow.
That's right. That's right.
Our children are flowers,
That's right.
and there's so many weeds that would try to choke the flowers
right.
out.
That's right.
And when they're left to themselves, which society is wanting, Nickelodeon can't do it, Disney can't do it,
But they're trying.
yeah, but they can't cultivate in the way that
No,
God
not at all.
that
Not at
God
all.
designed, because that's not safety,
Because
and that's not security.
because that was not the responsibility of Nickelodeon or
Right.
Disney. He
Right.
put that. It wasn't even the responsibility of the mother. It was the responsibility of the father to be able to create an environment of cultivation to
Right.
produce good fruit.
Right.
And so when we're talking about the impact of fathers, the responsibility of fathers,
Mhm.
the father should make it to where that a home is so
Safe.
so opportunistic
Right.
for productivity,
Safe.
and that they are safe to ask questions.
Right.
They're safe to make mistakes. They're
Mhm.
safe to fall,
Mhm.
because you're there to help them get
Right.
back up.
Right.
And so
Can I say this too before
Yeah.
you move on? And part of that safety is stability. Kids need to be able to predict,
That's
and the only
right.
way to have predictability is to have
That's
consistency.
right. That's right.
And even if you have to move, and even if you have to make changes, it matters that the parents don't move, because God
Right.
says, I change not. And that's what
Right.
creates our mental stability, our emotional stability.
Right.
So no matter what's going on, because people die, people lose their
That's
jobs, people have to move. Our economy's
right.
bad. Right
That's
now, you
right.
guys are looking and faced with an economy that
That's
is
right.
causing people to move in with their family members, which is
That's
calling
right.
people to just figure
right.
it out. But even in a moving society,
That's
you
right.
create
That's
consistency
right.
by having the
And
consistent
stability.
and
That's right.
stability and safety,
That's right.
by consistently walking with God and aligning yourself
Right.
with his precepts, because they shouldn't have the bipolar parent effect where, okay, at church you're nice, at home
Right.
you're not, at work you're nice, at
Right.
home you're not.
Right.
Kids need to see you
That's
smile
right. That's right.
more than in the pulpit and
That's
at
right.
home.
It's funny because what you're talking about, looking back now, I believe that it was my responsibility to create consistency and stability. My child should, even though the hardships that we have gone through, that was not their fault,
Right.
and neither should they feel that it was their fault.
Right.
It was my responsibility to create an environment, even if we had to relocate to move somewhere,
Right.
that they knew that we created an environment. An environment was created that they could still thrive,
Right.
that they can still move forward, they can
Right.
progress in their own lives.
Right.
And so that is one of the hallmark responsibilities of a father, to create an
Right.
environment of stability
Right.
and well-being.
Right.
And so when you create that environment, your child is not being provoked. It's not,
Right.
they're not forced to think, I have to do something
Right.
in order to change the environment, or I have to do something
Right.
in order to fix this environment. I don't have to provoke my child to be angry.
Right.
There's a there's a I forgot what movie it was, and the guy was upset and he was rubbing his stomach and he was looking at his dad. He was like, "Huh, lost another job, huh?" But you don't. My responsibility as a father is to create an environment where my child can grow, can develop, can thrive, can produce, or even make mistakes.
Right.
But they can feel secure enough
Right.
with what is created in that environment for them
Right.
to move forward.
Right. And even we talk about moving forward, but I want to bring up the scripture that says, bring them up.
Mm,
So when you talk about bringing them up, that means they can't bring themselves up. And so many
right.
of us have had pockets of, experiences where we had to figure it out on our own. We talk about it, how we were latchkey kids, and the things we learn about. You get to bring your child up.
Right.
That means active participation. That means that you have to join your child on the side and bring them up, and not let the schools bring them up, not let their
Right.
friends bring them up. And bring up is such a word of exhortation and admonishment, and that's something we don't see a lot in the African American
You said
church
You said
historically.
active participation.
Active participation in admonishment and exhorting,
Mm.
affirming, positive speech, not just go get my shoes or go do this, but coming alongside your child and giving instructions kindly. That is how you bring them up, because sometimes we feel like they're just they're just gonna come up,
Or they're gonna
or you're
figure it
just gonna
out.
tell them,
Right.
go to school and get good grades. Well, bringing them up means I'm going to
Alongside
make sure
them.
you
Right.
have a tutor. I'm going to make sure you understand. I'm going to do homework with you. I'm going to invest in you. It is to bring them up. That means that there is energy exerted. And I know exerted. I know for my generation, there was a gulf between my parents and I, where it was a sea of the Red Sea, I guess, and that kept me in my place and kept them in their place.
Mhm.
And what that did, though, it didn't give me access to them and give them access to me. So they didn't have a active role in bringing me up. They may have told me some things, or I may have heard something about God, but coming alongside me
Mhm.
and giving me step-by-step encouragement. You can make it. This is how you make it. All of those things of
Right.
just how to be positive in your mindset and how God sees you, and not just critical and giving like just instructions and walk away, but the 1, 2, 3, not go make a cake, but this is how you make a cake.
Right.
Matter of fact, I'm going to go to the store with you and I'm going to show you what flour to get. I'm going to show you what ingredients to get. I'm going to spend time. I'm going to model it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to do it for you like a helicopter parent, but I'm going to have you with me and I'm going to show you how to bake a cake.
Mhm.
I'm going to bring you up and I'm going to encourage you. And even if it doesn't taste right, I'm going to let you know what you did wrong and how to fix it and how to make it better. But it's our job
Mhm.
to bring our children up. That's why drugs are bringing our children up.
Right.
That's
Right.
why early pregnancies are bringing our children up.
Right.
What are the things that are building up our children
Right.
in our place?
Well,
The sororities, all these
Right.
different things have taken on gangs. You my homie, you my little homie. All these things that build up self-esteem.
Right.
All these things. It is the parents' responsibility, the
Which
father's responsibility
right.
to build up.
I think that's what I was leading back to, is the fact that it it's taking the place of what the father was supposed to do,
Right,
and what the father's role and responsibility was within the nucleus of the family. What
right.
was their responsibility? And it's very interesting how we have taken on the same title. God has given every man the same title of which he calls himself.
Right,
That's a special title. That's
right.
a special title. God has given men if you're capable of having children, being a father, God has put that title that he has on himself, and he placed it upon men, and or the father of the home,
Mhm,
same that same title. And when we understand that must be something special
mhm,
in God's viewpoint, a father must be something special,
mhm.
and that must mean that there is a certain kind of element that the father brings to the aspect of the house, or
Right,
the aspect of the family,
right,
and the responsibilities that weight that it carries.
right,
And so, going back to fatherhood, that is an important piece, that you set the tone.
right,
You're pointing the trajectory of which way and how far and where where the child or the family is going.
mhm,
And so the father is, even though our society, what they're doing is they are redefining the roles of the nuclear family. They're redefining the roles and the responsibility of what the father does and what the
right,
father is supposed to do.
right,
And they're redefining it. And we are seeing what we are doing is reaping the results of this redefinition.
right,
Terms mean things. And when we misunderstand these terms and we don't get it from the way God sees it, terms, when you redefine terms, it changes the whole identity or whole idea of what God and how God meant it.
right,
And so
right.
we have to get back, and
Go back to what
we have
God
to
meant.
rearrest those terms and go back to the way how God sees it,
Right,
and how God in fact, the Bible says, whereby we cry, Abba, Father.
right,